Hey, my name is Jan, and in this video you will learn how to implement the credentials provider inside of your Next.js 14 app. This is the part 2 of the Next Auth series. In part 1 I already teach you guys how you can implement OAuth login options such as Google and GitHub inside of your app. And today you will learn how to store user data inside of your database and to then utilize Next Auth in order to use these stored credentials so that people can use them to sign into your app. Also, I wanted to say thank you for almost 100 subscribers. The feedback on the last Next Auth video was super positive and I'm very happy about it, and I've seen a lot of people asking for this part 2 video. And so without further ado, let's just get started. We will just use the project from the last video. So let me quickly hop into this project and let us spin up the development server with PnP run dev. I'm using the turbo flag, which right now makes the whole dev experience a lot faster in terms of compiling times. Right, so now our application is running, and for this video we will also install shadcn, which is a component library which is extremely popular right now, and we will use it together with Zod in order to create a registration and login form that has client-side validation in order to make sure that your users are going to have a great user experience. So let's just click on get started, installation. Let's click on Next.js because that's what we are using, and so let us quickly follow the installation guide. We are just going to run the init command with pnpm just like so. Now we just gotta wait, and now it's asking us which style we would like to use. I personally prefer the default one. Now it asks us for a base color. I'm gonna just choose neutral because I think it looks the best. I personally love CSS variables because they make theming a lot easier. So let's just click on yes, and that should be essentially it. Now let's also try to add the dark mode to our app as well. So let's follow the installation guide from the dark mode documentation. Right, apparently we have to create a new component which is called themeprovider.tsx. Let's paste this inside just like so, and let's wrap our children inside of this theme provider. And for the default theme, let's just choose dark. And as you can see, we now got dark theme working. Obviously this isn't too good looking, so let us actually, for the sake of this video, create an actual registration page. I'm going to make things a bit more big for you guys, just like so. Let us first of all prepare Next Auth. So let's go back inside of our auth options, and for the providers we want to add the credentials provider. Actually we have to import this again, so let's copy and paste this credentials provider just like so. And here we need to once again pass as an object which serves as the configuration. Also let us actually turn off the AI so we can learn something. There we go. For the name we are going to use credentials. This is basically the text that will automatically appear on the, if you didn't know, Next Auth has a pre-configured template page, and whatever you write in here will pretty much be at the top of the sign-in form as the text. Then we need to initialize a credentials object, and here we can pretty much enter whatever field we expect to get passed. So what you could put here is essentially like an email password, a username, a 2FA token. I think you get the idea. So for the sake of this video, we'll just use a normal email as well as a password. And lastly, let's create the authorize function, which in the end we will use in order to add all of our validation logic. And if everything is correct, we'll just return a user object. But for now, let us just return null because we are currently not passing anything. So let's just leave that out for now. Amazing. Let us also quickly create a little demo backend for the registration just to make sure that we are passing both the email and the password to our backend. So let's actually go inside of our auth folder, and let's create another folder in here which we will call register. And of course we will have another route.ts. Then we will need next response, and we want to export a string function, and the method is going to be post. Here we just need the request as the first prop. Now let us quickly add a try catch block. Error is going to be any. That way we can just console log the error.message. And then here we're just going to destructure both the email and password from the request.json. And then, as I said, we're just going to console log them for now just to make sure that everything is working as expected. Actually, let's wrap these inside of an object. There we go. Amazing. Let us now quickly create the register page front end. So for this, we just create a new folder in our app directory again, and we just want to call it register. And let's create a form.tsx, which is going to be our registration form, where we are just going to use the use client. So we are going to use the use client method inside of, and then we of course need a page.tsx. Amazing. Let us quickly create a boilerplate. Let's start off by obtaining the session, and we're actually going to obtain the session on the server. As you may know, on the app directory now, every single page is by default a server component, so we can can just use get server session, and we need to pass in the auth options. Obviously, we have to specify this as asynchronous, otherwise we can't use the wait. Now that we got the session, we can essentially just do the following thing. If we have a session, then the user obviously doesn't need to see the registration page, and thus we can just use the redirect function from Next navigation, and we're just going to redirect the user to the index page or wherever you actually want to redirect him. That's up to you, of course. And so let's actually create a section here. For the class name, we are just going to say a height is going to be screen, so the min height actually of your entire screen. And then we can just use flex, and then we actually center the whole thing just like so. Maybe also say container, just so you have some padding. And yeah, actually let's create a div here, and we're just going to give it a width of, let's say, 800 pixels. And let's quickly also initialize our form component. Also here we need to specify use client at the top, because we're using some client components that wouldn't work in a server component. That's essentially also why we had to split these up into 2 pages right here, because this is used on the server and this is used for client components. Let's also call this register form, makes things a lot more easy, I think. And now we are going to essentially use shadcn for this. So let's go into the documentation and look for the form. And here we have essentially everything we need. First of all, we need to add the form component. So let us quickly do that, just like so. It's now installing. Now that we have everything installed, it's as easy as just copying everything over that we need. So that's going to be obviously Zod and a form schema, which we're going to customize in a bit. Apparently we also need a Zod resolver, obviously, and the use form hook from React to form. It's pretty much just now a little copy and paste game, nothing too fancy. Let us copy this as well. This obviously has to go inside of our component, just like so. Let us also get rid of all of the comments for now. And obviously we need these form components as well, or our front end. And we also need to install input. I'm just noticing, yeah, we obviously need inputs as well. So let us actually use this command. Let's modify it to input instead of form, and let's paste it. There we go. And now this error should be gone. Yep, just like so. By the way, if this error doesn't go away, you can just hit Control Shift and P, and then you can just say restart TS server. That is just going to restart TypeScript. In that case, that often helps a lot. Right, so let us now actually insert the form part, which is this one right here. So let's copy and paste this over. There we go, just like so. Oh, actually, I did a little whoopsie here. Now it is correct. Yep, that is looking very good so far. Let's actually make this terminal a bit smaller. And now let's save this for now, and let's see how this looks like. Also, obviously, we need to insert the register form here inside of our page.tsx. And now let's navigate over to /register, and that is looking okay, I guess. Yeah, now we have a field called username. Obviously, you could make this look a lot better on your own. I think it wouldn't be super interesting for you guys if I would just work on the front end for like 30 minutes straight. So I'm gonna just keep it very simple and just show you mostly the Next Auth related stuff. I hope you guys are okay with this. Okay, let's actually work a little bit on our little schema, which is actually in the end responsible for the client-sided validation, as I already mentioned in the beginning. And so for the username, that is already looking okay. I think a maximum of 50 characters should be good. Of course, you can just customize this to your own needs. But what I actually often like to do is specify a little message here. Essentially, inside of this min or max function, you can pass a second argument, which can be an object containing a message, which is basically going to be automatically placed below your input by shadcn in case the user does something your schema isn't a fan of. And so in this case, we would probably say username must be at least 2 characters long. And for the max amount, we want to specify a message as well. Password can be longer than 50 characters, just like so. Let's auto format this. And obviously I just figured we don't need a username. You could obviously add this just like this, but for this video, I forgot about our auth options, and we actually only have email and password. Obviously you can customize this to your own needs, but actually let's change this to email for this video, and let's change the min value to 1, and maybe let's say this field has to be filled. And for an email, let's make sure it's maybe not longer than 300 characters. I'm not exactly sure if that makes a lot of sense, but let's just keep it like this for now. Obviously this. And there's also something cool that comes with Zod, and that is called the email function, which automatically validates if this is a correct email or not. And in this case, we can just say this is not a valid email. You do not need to specify an object with the message key here. You can just leave it like this. This will work just fine. And let's also create a schema for the password, which is also going to be a Z. This is going to be a string as well. And then for the min admin value, password, let's say maybe 6. Let's add a message. Password has to be at least 6 characters long. Then you probably also want a confirm password. So this is going to be used so that the user is forced to repeat his password to make sure that he doesn't have a typo in it, and in the end won't be able to log into his account. So here we can just copy and paste the min amount over, say confirm password has to be at least 6 characters long. Set a comma here, and then we can use something that is called a super refine. And here we just create a function, and in here we can just obtain /d structure from our schema. So we just grab the confirm password as well as the password. We just say ctx, just like so. Now we can just essentially say if confirm password is not equal to your password. And here we can just now create an issue. I know this code is a bit complex, but well, Zod overall is a bit complex, but yeah, there's a lot of documentation and issue reports on it on Stack Overflow, so this stuff is actually pretty easy to find. So the message would probably say the passwords did not match. And then it's really important that we also specify a path here to where we want to display the arrow on. And in this case, we want to display the arrow on the confirm password field, just like this. This code should work. And by the way, in here, you could just specify default values. In this case, we don't need any for now. So let's just leave this out. Okay, so we're getting an error here because nothing in our schema says username. As you can see, we just changed this to email. So obviously we have to change the name to email now, so that when we later submit the form data, we actually get an email field. Let's change this to email as well, obviously, and the input now needs to be of type email. Placeholder, we can just say johndoe@whatever.com, for example. And if you want to use a form description, feel free to do so. It's very user-friendly. This is your email used to sign into our app. Let's save this and let's see how this looks like. Looking good so far. Let's also check if the schema validation is working. Let's type something in. Actually, do not add type email to this, as this, just don't do it. Otherwise, the Zod error messages don't work for some reason. But now that I've removed it, when I now type something in, as you can see, this is not a valid email. But if we hit submit, we now get a proper client-sided error saying this is not a valid email. And let's change this to a valid email. And since we have this on submit function here, which automatically gets called inside of our form as soon as you hit the submit button, which type submit with type submit, we can just now take a look at our console. Let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of these errors. And let's hit the submit button. And as you can see, it doesn't work. Why is that? Because we are still missing some fields. We still need the password and confirm password field added to our front end in order for these values to get passed properly. So let's add these real quick as well. So let's just copy this down. Let's call this one password. Let's actually don't add a placeholder for this. This is your password used to sign into our app. I think here we can safely add type password. Yep. Here it is actually fine if you add type password. So you can see that the validation works and we now get these hidden letters, just like so. Amazing. And now let us also add the repassword, or like confirm, that's what we've called it, confirm password. And still is type password. And here we need to say confirm password, just like so. Please confirm your password, just like so. And now we should actually see the correct values in here as soon as we submit. So let's create and just type something in, submit. And as you can see, we successfully get a confirm password, email, and password. Amazing. Let's see if when we mess this up that, oh yeah, as you can see, it says the passwords did not match if they actually don't match, which is all working as expected, as you can see. So this is working great so far. Amazing. Now that we got this working, let us now pass this data to our backend, to the registration endpoint that we created at the beginning. And so for that, let's go inside of the onSubmit function. And inside of here, let's just say const response. It's going to be await fetch. Now we're just going to say /API/auth/register. And now we need to pass some options here. The method is going to be post. It's going to be a post request. The body is going to contain our submitted data. So we just need to JSON stringify this. Just pass these values here. And obviously we need to say async function here in order to use await. So in case the registration fails, we may want to show some messages. So let us just use the toast component from ShadCN. Actually, there's something called Sonar. Yeah, this one. This looks a bit better in my opinion. So let's just use this one. So let's install this once again. There we go. We want to see some documentations on it. We can just click this docs button. And here you can essentially see that you can change the looks of the toast, or at least the icon. And you just say toast.success, info warning, whatever. So that's good to know. Always just take a look at the docs, read through them because it is most of the times. Very worth it. And so let's say if response.error, you want to say toast, and here we can just paste in the response.error. Actually, we got to say toast.error. Actually, we need to get to JSON first. So let's say const data, and then we need to await response.json. And now we can just say if data.error, we want to display the error message, just like so. Some reason VS Code is very slow right now for me, so it's a bit annoying. But yeah, but in case there isn't an error, we can just say toast.success account created, just like so. And now let's see if that is working. Let us now add our email, our password, and let's hit submit. Obviously, we're going to get an error as we're just console logging inside of our backend. But as you can see, guys, it did make a request to the register endpoint, and it should actually console log. It should actually console log the data, which it did. As you can see, if we take a look inside of a terminal, it correctly got all of the information that we just passed from our registration form. And guys, in order to store the data in some sort of database, I decided to use MongoDB because that is what I usually use for my projects. And so this is what we're going to be using in this video. I know that not all of you guys like MongoDB, but it is just what I personally prefer to work with. So let's actually create a deployment here. We're just going to use the free tier for the sake of demonstration purposes. We're going to just use the region Frankfurt, as that is the closest location to me. And so let's actually create a deployment. Now we just gotta quickly do a little capture. Now we need to create a database user, which is what I'm just going to quickly do. And let's also choose a connection method. And I think here we have to choose drivers. Yeah, exactly. And now let's actually install MongoDB. So let's just say npm install MongoDB. This should now install in the background. Nice. And now we got our connection string right here. Let us copy this over. This is just to connect to our database. And so let's create a new entry inside of our .env.local. Let's call this one Mongo URL. I'll just paste the URL inside of here. Let's actually get rid of the app name cluster thingy. I don't think that we need this. And behind the slash here is actually what our database name is going to be. I'm gonna just call this demo underscore next auth, just like so. That should be good. Right. Actually, let's call this MongoDB URL. And let's save this. Now let's go inside of our lib folder and let's create a file called MongoDB client.ts and just copy and paste this inside of it. You will find this file inside of the GitHub repository that is linked in the description below. This is basically the file that we need in order to establish the connection to our database and to also do all sorts of operations with it, such as inserting, updating data inside of our database pretty much. Yeah, so perfect. So now we can add the logic in order to store the data inside of a database. For that, let us also quickly install a library called bcrypt. This is just to hash the passwords before storing them into our database, which is very important to do actually. You do never want plain passwords inside of your database. Now that we installed this, let's just say const hashed password. Let us quickly import the hash function from bcrypt. Actually, let us just use require because there is no TypeScript support. So let's just say const bcrypt require bcrypt. Actually, it would make more sense to do this down here. And now we can just say bcrypt.hash. Then, of course, we just put our plain password and the salt rounds. Here, you can just enter 10, which will be enough. And now we just first of all need to initialize the client. So let's do await client promise from our MongoDB client. Then we just need to grab the database. So we just say client.database and let's now const create account. And here we just say await db.collection. Here we just use the users collection. And now we just need to say insert one. Now we just pass an object. And we say email. And for the password, definitely make sure to use the hashed password here. As I said, never store a plain password inside of your database. Now we could just say return new next response. You could just say account created. Here we could just pass a status code of 200. Obviously you have to say next response.json. Here we just say success and we can remove the new because this is not a normal response, this is a next response. So I'll just copy this over and in the case if something goes wrong, we just say error and then we just say error.message status 500. Here we go. And this should now actually insert the user into our database. Obviously, I would recommend you guys to use MongoDB mongoose and create a complete schema for your user, like with email and password, in order to have some sort of automated validation. Otherwise, you will be forced to obviously add other validation inside of your backend as well, like comparing that the email is an actual email and that the password and the repassword actually do match. But I'm just leaving this out because otherwise the video would be too long, but I'm pretty sure that you will figure this out yourself. Perfect. So let's give this a try. Let's go back into our app. Actually, let us quickly also connect to our database using MongoDB Compass. Just very, very easy to work with the data inside of here. So I highly recommend you to download this program. So here we just paste in the connection string that we also use inside of our app. Now when we click connect, we get beamed into our database pretty much. Obviously there's nothing in here right now, but that should hopefully change now as soon as I will try to create an account. Let's say johndoe@gmail.com, enter some random password, hit submit, and hopefully we actually do get an error for some reason. Oh yeah, we are missing a environment variable. This is because the MongoDB client expects a environment variable called MongoDB URE. So we actually need to readjust the name, and we also need to restart our application in order for the changes inside of our .env.local to take effect. So let's actually restart our application real fast, real quick. And there we go. It's already up and running. Let's do the same thing again. Let's hit submit and let's see what happens. It says account created. Amazing. So this seems to have worked first try. And as you guys can see, I just hit refresh. And now we have our demo Next Auth database. Let's go inside of it. And here we have a collection called users, just as expected. And as you can see, guys, we now have a document saying email and password. And here we have our hashed password. So this already worked perfectly. And for the payload, as you can see, guys, I used this password. And this is also what we're going to try to use as soon as we add our login logic. All right. Now that we have a perfectly working registration form with client-sided validation in place, let us now also create another form for the login page. So for that, let us create a new folder called login. And we once again need to create a form.tsx as well as a page.tsx. Let us copy this over to our login form. So actually we need to adjust a few things. First of all, let's get rid of the super refine as well as the confirm password. We do not need these inside of our login form. Let's change this from register form to login form. And here we just say you are now signed in. The endpoint also changes from register to login, and we can get rid of the confirm password field inside of our front end, just like so. Obviously, you have to say login form here as well. There we go. I would probably get rid of the form description inside of the login page because I don't know, I think they're a bit weird when you use them on the login page. So let's get rid of them. And this should be all. Amazing. Now let's just copy and paste this over as well. Pretty much the same thing. We can just leave this in because, well, when you're on the login page, you're already signed in. Of course, it would be better to just get redirected to the index page. So let's just leave this in. Here we obviously need to now say login form in order to get the correct form. Maybe above the submit button, let us create a link using next link. Let's say href /login. Then we could maybe like say already have an account. Just like so. Obviously, in that case, we have to create a div with these inside of it. Or I think I can just say, block on the link and then it should work. Yeah, just like so. Now, if I click this, we get redirected to the login form. And let's add something similar. Let's also actually create a little heading here saying registration. Let's go back. Registration. Yeah, that's looking okay, I guess. Let's make it a bit bigger. Let's say font semi-bold, just like so. And that looks pretty cool. Great. Let's copy this over to our login form. Let's say login here. Let's also grab this little thingy, paste this above the submit button. And here we should say don't have an account. Question mark. Now we can just essentially, link is not defined. My bad. Let's paste it like this. There we go. And now we can just switch between these. Oh, actually I have to adjust the URL /register. Now we can finally switch between these just like so. Great. That's looking very good. Now we just need to add the sign in logic inside of our our login form. And so I actually forgot that we do not need an extra endpoint for this. There's actually a built-in function inside of NextAuth that makes the sign-in possible, and that pretty much forces you to then use the authorize function automatically inside of our auth options. And so let's quickly use this function. The function is called sign-in. So let's just import this from NextAuth React. And first argument, we have to say credentials, and then we need to pass an object. And here we are going to pass both the email and the password. So we could essentially just say values here. That should theoretically work. Actually, let us do it like this. Let's actually just say email is equal to values.email, and the password is equal to values.password. And then we want to say redirect false. Let's also for now log the response just to see if everything works as expected. And if there isn't a response.error, then we can just let's create a router real quick. So let's just say const router. Here we just say use router from next router. And then if there isn't an error, so that basically means that the user is now signed in. We can just redirect him to wherever we want. In that case, let us just redirect him to the dashboard, for example. So we obviously can get rid of this. So that should now actually work. Let's go back inside of our auth options. And I forgot to mention that we have to do one thing that is very, very important for our sessions. Since we're using the credentials provider, we need to store those credentials somewhere on the client. And for that reason, we have to say strategy JWT, which basically stands for JSON Web Token. And that way we won't run into any errors. Let's now quickly grab our MongoDB stuff. Let's just paste this over inside of our authorize function. We need to, of course, import this again. Now we can just grab the user from the database. Let's just quickly copy this over as well. db.collection.users. In this case, we need to say find one. So the find method is going to make sure that we actually grab the user from the database so that we can, in the end, return it inside of the authorize function. So in this case, we have to make sure that the email is equal to credentials, which could be possibly no. So we have to add a question mark here. .email. And now since the password is hashed, we need to actually compare it first. So let's actually require bcrypt again. Let's do this down here. So now we just say const password correct. Now we just say await bcrypt.compare. And now we just basically compare the password that we passed with the password from the database. Oh, we actually need to say await here. It's really important. There we go. So now we can just say if password is correct, we can just basically return an ID, for example. Here we could just say user.id and the email. So user.email. And once again, we could just log this for now just to make sure that everything is working as expected. And otherwise, it is still throwing an error because we're still returning nothing in case that the password isn't correct. So now we can just say return null in that case, which now should also get rid of this error, which it doesn't for some reason. That's strange. For some reason I had to say as any here. That basically got rid of the error. I don't know why. But yeah, that seems to work now. What is also really important in order for the credentials provider to work is that you have a NextAuth URL and NextAuth secret. So make sure that these two are included inside of your .env file. If you don't know how to generate one of these secrets, make sure to watch the full last video because I explain it in that video. Amazing. That is now all saved. And I think we can now try to log in. So let's go inside of our app. And here is a little issue. NextRouter was not mounted. Let's see. Yeah, I think the issue is because we are importing it from NextRouter, not Next Navigation. Let's change that. Yeah, now it works as you can see. So make sure to use Next Navigation for the use router hook. Great. Let's open up our console and let's see what's going on as soon as we try to log in. I'm just going to use the email that is already stored inside of a database. So it was just johndoe@gmail.com. Let's use the password, which was 23. Wait, what was it? Yeah, it was 2341234 2341234. And let's hit submit. And we got redirected to the dashboard. So that means that we should now be signed in, actually. Obviously, the /dashboard page doesn't exist. So let's quickly create that page. Okay, now that we have a dashboard page, let us create a form.tsx here as well, maybe. But let's also go inside of the page again. Let's grab the session. Let's make this asynchronous. Need to import get server session as well as auth options. And now we could just say welcome back. and then session.email. We obviously do not have a username in this case. Session.email. So I'm just console logging the session right now, and it seems as if this is inside of a user object. So let's just do const user. Here we just say session.user. Obviously, what we should also do is, if we do not have a session, then we want to redirect the user to /login, just like so. But otherwise, we can just say const user session.user, and here we could just say welcome back user.email, just like so. And as you can see, it now says welcome back johndoe@gmail.com. Change the text size a bit. And obviously we do not have anything else to display because this is just a very basic approach with just email and password. But of course you could just store stuff like the username. You could allow the user to upload images. So now let me just build something that allows us to change our email. And as soon as we've changed our email, we want to update our session on the client in order to display the newly set email in our front end. And so in order to do this, we have to do something very strange. We have to create a function called reload session. So let's actually create a funcs.ts inside of our lib folder. Let's just do export const reload session. And here we just create an event. So a new event. And that event is called visibility. That event is called visibility change. And now we have to say document.dispatch event, just like so. Then we need to quickly hop back into our auth options. Now, Next Auth allows us to initialize callbacks for certain events. And inside of here, we can create a JWT event, which is going to be a asynchronous function, which has a user, a token, a trigger, and a session, just like so. And so if the trigger is going to be update, I will show you where we will essentially do the update inside of our front end, which will automatically trigger this callback. Then we are just going to return the JWT token as well as the updated session, which is going to be automatically grabbed from the database. Otherwise, we are just going to return our token and the user just as usual. Actually, I think the callbacks have to be inside of here. Yeah, obviously, wait, need to put them inside of, they actually have to be in this location, just like so. Pretty much below providers, you just insert the callbacks, and then it should look essentially like this. And let's quickly create a endpoint saying update email. And we just create a route.ts, export async function post. And here we want to first of all get the session. So we do get server session again, and we just pass the auth options. And so if there isn't a session, we want to essentially say status 400 not authorized. It's really important to add. Otherwise, people could just use this endpoint to change anyone's email pretty much. Let's say const does user exist. Now let's grab our MongoDB. Let's grab our MongoDB logic again. Collections as users. And then we just say find one email. We just say const emails equal to request.json. We have to await this, of course. And now we can just say email right here. If does user exist. Actually, if not does user exist, we want to throw another error. User doesn't exist. And now that the user exists, we can just update the email here. So we could just add this logic here. Const update email. We would also, of course, pass something which is called the new email. And here we would say update one. And the field is going to be email. And here we just pretty much insert the value of the update, which is going to be new email. Just like so. Right. And that should then say email changed. Amazing. Let us then quickly create a little form. We have this already right here. Let us just use the register form for this and just modify it a bit. So let's paste this here. Dashboard form. Let's rename that real quick. And we will essentially just need an email. So let's get rid of the password and the confirm password. Yep, that's looking good. Modify your email. Just say it like this. You can get rid of the password and the confirm password. Let's get rid of these. And here we could essentially pass in the default value. That's a very good use case. So let's actually to our dashboard form, let's just say email. And here we're just going to pass the email that our user has, our signed in user has. So now we can just say default values, and here we could just say email. And now that is properly inserted. So let me just Just leave that as it is. Let's capitalize this M. And we're going to be hitting the update email endpoints. And in this case, actually, this makes no sense. We can just leave it as email because here we are just going to be saying update one session.user.email. So email session.user.email. Oh, and obviously always make sure to await the get server session. I keep forgetting this for some reason. And this is how it should look like now. Now it's essentially going to try to find the user from the current session's email. And as soon as he found it, the email is going to be updated with the email that is being passed to this endpoint from our update email form. And let's change the TOTALS notification to email changed. Obviously now we just have to insert the dashboard form right in here. And yes, you can see it is now asking us for the email, which we can just very easily pass here from our server session. So we just say session.user.email. And we have to say as string because it could also not exist. We have no validations for this in place. But yeah, in a real case scenario, you would of course have to add a lot more checks here just to make sure that the data actually exists. But I think in this case it's going to be fine. Actually getting an error here for some reason when I save this. Now the error is gone apparently. That is strange. Either way, as you can see, it is automatically inserting our current email. We now refresh the page, which is working just as expected. Oh, and we can just get rid of the already have an account thing. Obviously we do not need this in the dashboard. So let's remove this. For the submit button, maybe let's make this more user-friendly by saying change email. Now let us first of all see if this works without updating the session. So let's just take a look at the network tab and let's just, I don't know, say johndoe2@gmail.com. As you can see, guys, our current email inside of the database is johndoe@gmail.com. We get change email. We get a 400. Interesting. Okay. User doesn't exist. That is weird. Let's see why that is. I see. Let's just use this here as well because it essentially just used a new email to find the user, and because of that it said user doesn't exist. By the way, we have to say error here, not success. Sorry, a lot of mistakes. I have a little bit of a headache today. I hope the video is still somewhat understandable. I didn't want you guys to wait too long for this video because I've gotten a lot of requests, and so yeah, I hope it's still fine. Let's refresh the page and let's say johndoe4@gmail.com and we get another error apparently. Update document requires atomic operators. Oh yeah, I forgot that we, I think this is because we just pass an object here like this, but what we actually have to do is we have to still pass an object, of course, but we have to use this $set thingy, and then we have to pass whatever we want to change, in this case the email. I think this should now work. Let's try this again. So I just changed this to johndoe66@gmail.com and now we get a 200 saying email changed. Let's actually see if the email changed inside of our database. Yep, it did, as you can see. So that's already working correctly. Let's refresh the page, and as you can see, it is still inserting our old email because we haven't actually updated the session on the client. And this is what I'm going to show you guys now how to do this. We already created the reload session function, and we also configured our auth options in order to take into account the update event. Now to update the session, we are just going to say, we're just going to obtain the session on the client first of all, const data session like usual, and then you would also need to get a function from this called update. Now we just use the use session client-sided hook from Next Auth, just like so. Now that we have the update function, we can now just call it. So we just say update, and then we pass our current session and whatever we want to update. So as we know, our session first of all contains a user object, and for that user object we are now going to of course first of all add our current session.user, and now whatever we essentially want to update. In this case we want to update the email, so we just say email, and then here we just say values.email, just like so, and that is going to be updating our session on the client. And now what's extremely important is that you now use this reload session function to make the changes appear in real time. That is only needed if you, for example, add the functionality to change the user's avatar, and you maybe have a nav bar and the avatar is at the top right hand corner, and once you change the image here, you maybe want to also change the image on the nav bar without the user having to refresh their page, and that is essentially how you're going to do it. But this reload session thingy is, of course, this reload session function, I can just highly recommend it to always call after you pushed an update, just like this. And so So let's save this and see if it actually works. So right now, of course, we still have the old session, but now maybe let's change this to webdevjan@gmail.com, change email, and then we get an error, invalid hook call. I think this is because I'm trying to use the use session hook inside of a function. We have to actually put it up here, just like so. Now let's try this again. Let's just say webdevjan@gmail.com, change email, see if it changed in the database. It didn't. Okay, so that was a little, oh yeah, obviously because it is now trying to find, it is now submitting our current email. Oh, as you can see, but it did update it already. It did update our session. Which is actually kind of strange, because I'll also make sure that if there's an error to return here, because it now updated our session without the endpoint actually returning a success. We actually have to manually change the email real quick in the database, just like so. So now everything is synced again. And if we now say test email@gmail.com, we hit change email, get a success. And if we now refresh the page, we should get the updated email inside of this field, which we do. As you can see, the session is correctly updated, as well as in the welcome back message, of course. And this is essentially how you modify your session on the client. This is it. This video turned out pretty long. Let me check the recording time. It's actually almost 2 hours. As I said, guys, I have a little bit of a headache, but I still hope that this video was still somehow watchable and that you learned something new today. As always, you can leave your questions down in the comment section below and I will try to answer all of them as soon as I can. And everything that we've worked on in this video is also going to be in the GitHub repository under this video inside of the description. Before I'll end this video, let us just quickly go over what we've created in this video. So I'm going to just quickly clear all my cookies, which should now actually redirect me to the login page. Yeah, as you can see, this is all working. So let's just create an account. As you can see, we can just switch between login and registration. This is everything that we have in our users collection right now. Let's create a new user called webdevjan@gmail.com. Just going to use the same password as always. Now let's just hit submit, and that should have created a brand new user, which it did. Now let's go to the login page. Let's say webdevjan@gmail.com. I'm going to use the same password, and now let's hit submit. As you can see, we're now on the dashboard. It shows the correct email, and now we also have the option to modify that email. Modified email@gmail.com. So change email, and as you can see, the email did change. And if we now refresh the page, the email changed also inside of our client session. This is all. I hope you guys are going to have a great day. Thanks for watching. If you don't want to miss out on any new video, make sure to subscribe. And if you thought this tutorial was helpful, please hit the thumbs up button to let me know that I did a good job here. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.